When it comes to the YouTube community, one of the biggest stories in the past few months was the allegations against the YouTuber Kwite. For those who aren't exactly in the loop with the situation, Kwite was essentially accused of sexual assault, and the internet went crazy due to this, to say the least. In a single day, Kwite went from a beloved commentary channel with millions of fans backing him to public enemy #1 for most people. This caused him to lose more than 70,000 subscribers on his channel, with loads of people rushing to his comment section to completely bash him for what he allegedly did. And the way that this has happened has kind of perplexed me, considering how many people just jumped on this shit while only hearing one side of events. So with this video, I want to go over the allegations in full, the public's response to everything, and Kwite's statement, and I'll try to make sense of it all. But before we get into everything, I want to say this. Situations like this are very serious and usually constantly developing, so I'd recommend everyone to not just listen to this video and research the situation a bit. That way you can come to your own conclusions. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. On February 22nd, 2023, a Twitter user going by the name Orion came out with a twitlonger about their experiences with Kwite. And the accusations being levied here range in severity, with the least severe being transphobia and being called slurs, to the most severe being a rape allegation. And that's the one I'm going to be focusing on the most. The others are important as well, but I feel like focusing on the most severe one is the best thing to do, as that's the one that's potentially career ruining. So let's get into it. The story told of the twitlonger about the rape accusation essentially is that Orion was raped in his car by Kwite after telling him no several times, until Kwite got bored and got out of his car, and they both quote unquote made up by going to watch a movie that they were there to see. This would be pretty fucked up if it was true, but it is important to note that there's virtually no evidence that these events went on, which didn't exactly convince me when I first read the allegations. Now, you might give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it's hard to prove a rape accusation, and to that I say, you're 100% right. It is hard to prove something like this. And to be completely fair to Orion, they did provide proof that Kwite and him were talking, and that they were together around the time frame of the supposed incident. But again, these are serious allegations, and shouldn't just be taken at face value. There was also no proof of the other shit alleged in a twitlonger, which included emotional abuse, dead naming, and being called slurs, which can really be an issue if you're trying to fully prove these things. Orion's explanation for this in the twitlonger is that Kwite mainly called him and texted on services like Skype that tended to delete messages after certain dates, and while that does make sense, it could also be seen as a convenient excuse for everything. Again, he showed proof that they at the very least had conversations in Discord with Kwite, judging by the evidence provided. So why not just provide more messages? This doesn't exactly make sense to me. Now, of course, all these things don't prove Orion to be wrong. Not at all. But the evidence posted also doesn't prove without a shadow of a doubt that Kwite did the things he was accused of. And this is exactly why I was waiting for Kwite's side before coming to any conclusions about everything. But Twitter seemed to disagree with me, however. When the allegations were released onto Twitter, they were met with immediate support from most people, with guilty until proven innocent being a popular argument that people were using for this. There were also arguments that Orion would have no reason to lie, so you should believe them immediately. And this is scary to say the least. Let's go back to 2019 for a second. The YouTuber Slazo was accused of rape by his ex-girlfriend Che, and had almost his entire career ruined. But these allegations were proven to be completely false. And before you say, well, Orion had a lot of evidence, well, so did Che. In fact, she had way more, and she was still proven to be a liar. So the fact that people were so confident with supporting these, even with past cases like this being proven false, is just astounding to me. Obviously, this doesn't mean that Orion is a liar, but what it does mean is that this stuff could easily be false. We don't know for sure when allegations like this get thrown into the mix. Other arguments that I've heard to defend Orion on this is that fake accusations of rape and sexual assault are very rare, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. In that case, I should be able to accuse anyone of this shit and have people believe me, because false accusations are rare. It shouldn't work like that. Beliefs like this are very dangerous and only poison the well when it comes to discussing these types of things. I'd also like to mention that criticism seems to be written off as discrediting a story and supporting an abuser, when it's just, you know, criticism. Just because someone had an issue with the story or narrative that you're pushing doesn't mean that they're necessarily against you. Being hostile does not help your case in the slightest. I don't know how much more I can say in this segment other than let's wait for both sides for the 5th time, so I'll conclude with this. This situation has told me that no one has learned from the past. Time and time again, people get accused of fucked up things and people will just jump on the story to support a victim. victim. People can and do lie about situations like this. It's not like it's something that doesn't happen. And these people supporting Orion would be completely proven wrong once Kwite's response came out. On March 11th, 2023, Kwite released an hour-long response to the allegations levied against him by Orion, which, to say the least, essentially proved the allegations against him to be false. The entire video is a long watch, and I can't exactly summarize it in this video, so I'm gonna link it in the description below. But I'm gonna try and give a basic rundown of it, and give my own opinions on it. So let's get into it. In Kwite's video, he responds to everything in a twitlonger point by point, and gives a lot of evidence to prove his side of events. If you remember in Orion's original twitlonger, he only provided evidence of him and Kwite being friends and supposedly being in a relationship, along with leaking his face, which was a fucked up move to say the least. And there was also nothing definitive that proved sexual assault, or the other claims made. So you might be wondering how he even proved this shit false, since there was almost nothing to work with in the first place. Well, Kwite managed to somehow provide evidence through Discord DMs between him and Orion that proved a lot of the claims to be false. The conversations between Kwite and Orion showed in the video completely contradicted the Kwite that was described in Orion's twitlonger. And if anything, it showed that Orion himself was the one fucking up. He also addressed things that probably didn't need to be talked about in the response, like Orion claiming that Kwite's whole outfit in his videos was basically created by him, which he countered by showing some old videos from 2016, which were from before he and Orion even met.
Because he didn't use his face in his videos, I thought he would have an easier time if I drew him and recommended he wore sunglasses and a face mask instead of manually keying his face out with a black box. There, I essentially came up with a persona with him and drew various talk sprites. That whole section has almost no basis in reality. This is a deleted video of mine from 2016 celebrating 500 subscribers.
How y'all doing? Hello and welcome to my 500 subscriber special. As you can see, I've put in a lot of effort to ensuring that the audio quality of this video is top notch.
A time and milestone I hit a month before ever first speaking with Orion.
The last thing I'll mention from his response is the mentioning of the Slazo situation, and it made me gain a huge amount of respect for Kwite. In the video, he apologizes for his handling of the Slazo situation back when it happened in 2019. For context, Kwite was involved with a few others in trying to release his Slazo allegations, and essentially jumped the gun on everything before getting his side. Kwite completely owned up to this, and even empathized with Slazo, considering that they both went through the same exact situation essentially. And this was nice to hear. I really do appreciate him speaking up about Slazo in the video. It showed maturity on his part, and that he's learned from situations in the past. Yeah, it might be ironic, and I don't blame people making jokes about it, but it's good that he doesn't stand by what he did in this situation anymore. But to conclude my thoughts on this, Kwite's response did everything it needed to do, and way more. It's probably the best response I've seen since My Side by Slazo, and he went to great lengths to prove his innocence, including talking about embarrassing shit in his private life. That's something I'd never be able to do personally. It would fuck me up too much. So I respect the hell out of him for that. The last thing I'd like to mention is Orion's statements on Twitter after everything came out, which were puzzling to say the least. His first tweet after the video came out was just saying that he couldn't watch Kwite's response yet, but would be treating it with respect, which is completely fair. But some issues come in after this point. He put out a tweet claiming to have proof that Kwite actually did rape him, and included in the tweet is a screenshot of a supposed medical record of Orion's medical diagnosis. And I don't want to accuse him of anything, but this looks extremely fake, with grammar errors and repeating text. And even if these discrepancies weren't there, something like this could be typed up within a few minutes, so this isn't really proof of anything. But that's it for now. Keep in mind that situations like this are always developing, and this might not be the end of everything. But I don't think we can trust Orion at this point with what he's saying, since it's been proven how he lied, at least not without direct evidence. Moving on. This entire situation just proves to me that the internet never learns whenever it comes to allegations like this. Time and time again, people are accused of heinous shit and people just run with the story and severely fuck the reputation of the person in question. Some people come back from this and get their reputations back, but even if this happens, it could still completely fuck up their motivation to make videos and shit. Slazo completely stopped uploading about a year after his controversy, with the whole thing seemingly killing his drive to make videos, so it definitely has a massively negative effect. Even getting your reputation back doesn't exactly fix all the harm that's done. Some people will always see this person as a rapist, pedophile, or whatever buzzword they are accused of, and that's why it's always important to be careful. Don't shit on the supposed victim's obviously, but look at situations with open eyes. Believe all victims has turned into believe all allegations, and something needs to change. But with that, I'm done with this video. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support as of recent. All of my social medias are in the description below, including a new podcast I'm doing with my friend Spindling, so go check that out if you want, and remember, #FLM.